Yeah, I just, for some reason, the last three words of section two for me were blah, blah, blah. Eliot's irony of images. The poet has a notion of what heaven indeed might assume. Some infinitely gentle blah, blah,
Yeah, infinitely gentle.
blah, blah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I just got sick of taking that note, I guess. So, section three, um, Bloom, this is where we start to see a real argument taking shape. He says, he sort of gives us what greatness in poetry means to him. Right? He says, greatness in poetry depends upon splendor of figurative language and on cognitive power, or what Emerson termed meter making argument.
Meter making argument. My first question to that. So, do we agree with that? Is that true? In the most
Um,
basic, we don't have to get
at,
super.
at most basic level, I mean, if we agree with him on what figure eight, well,
Let's assume we. Yeah, I mean, I guess I, figurative language. I think is just a good way to phrase what we're doing with this like kind of word art like form. But like when he talks about the cognitive power, that's another factor that it kind of hinges on it. So like if the best or great poetry or the greatness in poetry depends on like not just the use of figurative language but like the cognitive power. So now we're getting outside the poem here a little bit is my only qualm. But yeah, just do we agree with that? Should we add or take away anything to that kind of his initial stance? And is the cognitive power what is created from the figurative language?
I think the cognitive power is what's behind the figurative language. Right.
Okay, so it's like overlapped, so it's both ways.
Um, I mean, we can get into what one needs to be a judger and, well, not just a reader, but also a judger of a poem, and whether or not it is what he would call great or maybe just authentic, whether we should be conflating those two, I do not know. Um, the only part I'm like hesitantly stuck on is figurative language. And I want to say yes, because I think he's using it so broadly and figuration is so broad. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the most sort of plain spoken poem I can think of. All that comes to mind is it is June. I am tired of being brave, but it is surrounded by figuration. And it comes as sort of a really wonderful and starkly contrasted moment. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think I agree with him.
It's hard to argue with just because it is he's trying to do something that's very difficult, which is to try to make the subjective or the subjective objective. But even then, he's not even there yet. He's talking about just like understanding poetry at this point.